let's start with a little game, or maybe more like a thought exercise. Let's say that you've just been appointed as a head of security of some product. Maybe that's not the game for you. Maybe you have in the past, or maybe you are one right now. Then I guess it will be easy for you. But anyway, you are responsible for security of a product. So what would you do? Because I don't think I need to tell anyone here that securing things is not super easy. So what would be your first steps? What would be your first activities? And I leave you with this question for a little bit, because probably I need to introduce myself. So I'll be talking about threat modeling and how we did it in my company, and how we kind of scale it up with cards, actually. And I think you will understand what I mean later on. My name is Mateusz. I'm from Poland, and I've been working in IT for about 11 years. Started as software developer, and around 5 years ago I started drifting into application security. Now I'm working as an application security engineer at Ocado Technology. You might have heard of Ocado Technology because we do have an office, an engineering office here in Barcelona. I mostly deal with Java web technologies because that's most of our products are written like that, but sometimes a little bit of more unusual things, I guess. And from my experience, you don't really know what application security engineer does, because it means something different in every company. So my job in Ocado is to help our developers to produce secure code. And I'll come back to this later on. And actually, I decided to create this talk with a motivation that can be summed up with a quote, somehow famous quote, that in theory, there's no difference between theory and the practice, but in practice there is. And the problem was that we started doing threat models in Ocado, and it turned out that there isn't a lot of like practical approaches. Meaning, there wasn't a lot of materials to go on to start, and we've been doing quite a lot of trials and errors. And I kind of thought that it would be nice to have more information on how to do this in real life if you are working in a real company. So yeah, that's why I'm here. And like a little thing I also wanted to mention. So yeah, embrace your noobness, I guess, because I do not consider myself to be some super expert on threat modeling. This is not how you should do this. This is how we did it. And yeah, I'm very open to discussions, probably not right now, because that would be hard, but afterwards I'll be very happy to discuss if you think that our ideas are good or not. Yeah, just I'll be super happy to learn from your experiences as well. Right, so short agenda is, first of all, I'll try to explain more or less why we think threat modeling is important and why you should do this. Then there will be, I'll describe our process, and finally some lessons we have learned. So going back to the question from the beginning. You are this head of security, and the problem, in my opinion, that's obviously only one problem, but the problem is that there is so many fun stuff you can do. So maybe you are super fond of bug bounties, and you want to start a program, but like in the middle of it, you think, but we kind of suck at DevSecOps, and maybe we need some tools to be integrated into pipelines, but you haven't even finished, and you realize that actually we are not training developers. So they don't actually know how to write secured code, and so on and so on. The problem is, if you are working like this, then you are not very much different than Kevin here, running around trying to fix everything at once, and I don't think that's super optimal way of introducing security. So I'm not saying that any of those activities I mentioned before are bad. They're great. But I would suggest that you probably should start with doing a threat model. And this is so you have some kind of a methodical approach to introducing security. And I kind of have this, like, in my head, I'm trying to, I have this visualization, don't be a running headless chicken, or Kevin from the last GIF, because, and this is like pretty important information, do not Google image search for headless chickens. I wanted to have some kind of a nice cartoon picture in here, but the results are very disturbing, and they cannot be unseen. So I used Kevin back then, and I recommend you to do not. This is still kind of a way I am thinking about this, to apply some kind of order into your initiatives. And if you do that, then you'll be able to answer 3 questions, which, in my opinion, are very important. First of them being, why do you actually want to be secure? And if you think this is strange, I'm an application security engineer, and I'm asking this question, I mean, they are paying me to make everything secure, so why would they ask this question? Well, I think this is a very important question, because I would say that you don't want to be a zealot, security zealot. If you want to kind of have like nice relationship with everyone around you in the company, don't do this. You shouldn't be like, security is important because it's a security. That's unfortunately arguments a lot of people are making in our community, I am afraid. And I'd argue that that's not an ideal way. And why is that? That's because while security is important, and I do know that, I don't think it is the most important thing. So if you have a product, then the point of this product is to work, to have functionalities. So one of my funny stories from the university time was when we had this Java programming classes, and a friend of mine started, typing class blah blah and public static void main, and then sat down, thinking what to write next, right? And the teacher was coming behind his back. He looked at his screen and he said, "Well, congratulations, you have 0 bugs," which is true. But at the same time, that wasn't really an interesting program. It didn't do anything. So it's kind of easy to have 0 vulnerabilities. Just don't write anything, right? But that's not the point. You probably heard the joke about the only secure server is the one that is buried deep on the seabed. Well, this is generally funny, but again, this is not true, even from the security point of view. Because if you go back to the basic, what are the properties of secure systems? There's confidentiality, obviously. There's integrity, yes, but there's also availability. And guess which one of those server on the seabed is not having? What property is it not having? And products are for users. They need to function. If you focus too much on the security and forget about users, and by the way, about developers who need to deliver this product, then actually you might hard security in the end, because we all heard about like workarounds of anything like the famous post-it notes with passwords on the screens, just because you are requiring to change passwords every 10 days or so. Anyway, let's say that you know why you want to be secure. But the next question is what security actually means. What is a secure system? Which is kind of philosophical, I know. But I'll show you two secure systems in next two slides. These are real life systems. They are secured, obviously, because they're locks. And nobody says security more than locks, right? So this is the first one. There's the door, gate, there's a lock. And this is a secure system, apparently, because you can do this, which is funny. So I kind of Googled another example of this. So again, you have lock on the door, and it works, right? So the point is, there's not a simple definition of security, and if you forget about this, you can do stupid stuff, which will give you no security in the end, but will make you spend a lot of time working on this. I guess, you need to think about your context, about data you're storing, about your business model. For example, a lot of security people, in my opinion, focus too much on confidentiality of stuff. And again, I'd argue that for a lot of companies, availability is even more important. I know that for my company, this is the most important thing, that we need to be available. This is e-commerce. If you're not available, if people are not able to purchase things on your website, then you are losing a lot of money. All right. And by the way, yeah, so the examples with the logs were kind of obvious, right? Very funny and so on. But it's much easier to miss similar things with software, because with logs, everyone kind of gets it, even if you are not a trained security expert. With software, it's much harder to spot some problems. Well, finally, you do know why you want to be secure. You do know what things will make you secure, or your product secure. Well, that's easy now, right? Just do the thing. But have you talked to your product owners recently? Because their backlogs are pretty full, I think. Have you talked to your developers from your company? Because I'm yet to find a team in Ocado that will say that, yeah, actually we have nothing to do for next 6 months, let's work on this security thing. And the point is that there is a lot of work on development teams, and you can't do everything at once. And you can't spend like 6 years or even months working just on security, because again, security is not the most important thing. You need to be delivering a business value at the same time. And because of that, you need to prioritize your work. You need to work on on problems, or actually solutions that will give you the most bang for your bucks, right? With low effort, a lot of security added. And yeah, this all sounds pretty reasonable, I guess. But unfortunately, again, even though we knew that threat modeling is important, we had some problems with running this initiative. But I think the important context for this is that in Ocado, AppSec engineers and any other security engineers are not responsible for security of a product. In Ocado, the whole responsibility of everything product related is on teams. So it's going to be teams that will be working on threat modeling in the end. So yeah, that was kind of a point we were starting with. And because of that, our approach had to be at least somehow fun and engaging. I mean, if people are bored, then they will try to find every excuse they can to not do this again, right? So, yeah. Also, simple, because they can't, development teams can't spend next month just like researching threat model options and learning maybe some tools used for threat modeling and so on. We kind of wanted to have as simple rules as possible, use whiteboards and Google Sheets, not anything more complicated for this, and yeah, that's it. And finally, at least our developers want to have some sense of accomplishment. So if I make them sit for a prolonged amount of time, and in the end they feel that they wasted this time, again, they will not want to repeat the process again. And that's why we've chosen to go with so-called by us, cornucopia approach. Actually, there are two card games out there. One is Elevation of Privilege by Microsoft. The other one is Cornucopia by OWASP. I'm using Cornucopia in this presentation, but we actually, in Ocado, used both of them. They're very similar, and it doesn't really matter which one you choose. They are both very good. So probably you can try both of them. And these are like cards. You can play a game with those cards. And actually, we are starting with even more fun, which is drawing. This is our step 0. It's not like the most important part, but we do want to draw a system diagram. It's, again, not required, but it helps you to reason about the security of the system in the future. So then, you get this cards, you kind of play them, and in effect, you are collecting threats. You are obtaining a list of threats which are applicable to the system, but that's only half of the job, because then you need to assess those threats, and that means, first of all, quantify the risk associated to the threats. So, what's the impact? What's the likelihood? How serious is this problem? This is very important from the prioritization point of view, because you need to have this in order to prioritize. Also, assess if you are vulnerable, because threats can be also already materialized as vulnerabilities in your system, but at the same time, maybe it didn't happen yet, so the threat haven't yet materialized, but you want to be prepared in case it does. In the first case, you want to probably fix the vulnerability. In the latter case, you will want to introduce some defense in-depth controls to make sure that even if some vulnerability will occur later on, or maybe even if you're attacked, then you will be able to defend yourself. And then, and this is pretty important as well, you need to agree on actions. So first of all, can we accept the risk associated with the threat? Because not everything needs to be fixed, and definitely not everything needs to be fixed right now. So maybe we can accept the risk, like for a year or something. And companies do this all the time. This is kind of underlying the foundation of businesses to take some risks. And it depends how much risk are you willing to take. But yeah, sometimes it's a good thing to do. But if a threat is pretty serious, then how much work are you willing to do in order to fix this? Because maybe there's some quick fix. Maybe you will need to spend a lot of man days preparing a fix, and maybe you don't have time for this right now. Well, it depends on the project, but you need to actually commit to do something. And finally, this is not a part of threat modeling, but I thought it's pretty important to include this here as well. So threat modeling will be pointless unless you act in the end. So if you've committed to some actions, then do this and introduce those fixes, put some mitigations and things like this. Right. And I'll try to show you how threat modeling more or less could look like. So we'll be picking a card. I mean, cards are already picked. I was cheating, I know. Then I'll try to come up with some threats applicable to the application we'll be reasoning about. We are not going to do risk calculation because it's kind of out of scope. And possibly we'll propose some mitigations and repeat. We have like 4 cards, I think. But first, as I told you, you need to draw. So I drew a little diagram. This is some system. Let's say some e-commerce system, because you have customer and he wants to put down some orders in your e-commerce website. There's a retailer who wants to fulfill some orders. And there's also an admin of the cloud, because everything is in the cloud because it's 2019, I guess. So yeah, nothing really too complicated. And yeah, let's say you are doing threat modeling and playing the first card. So this is authentication 4. 4 is the rank of the card. Authentication is the suit. And Sebastian can easily identify usernames or can enumerate them. So obviously I will be simplifying things a lot, and I won't be going very much in depth, but you are talking with your development team, so is this possible? And you are kind of presenting them the idea of user enumeration vulnerability, when you know there's a different response when you use wrong username or password during login. And they are saying they actually know about this, and no, the error response is the same. So we are all right. How about password reset? These are actual conversation I had. And they are saying that, yeah, we thought about this too. So there's the same message if you do a password reset, no matter if the account is present or not. But I'm digging deeper. All right, so what about registration? And it's like, oh. And yeah, it turns out that you can do a user enumeration during registration as well. So we would put down a threat. Threat is account can be enumerated using registration functionality. And then we need to come up with solutions with mitigations. So one possible mitigation would be obviously to return the same message no matter if the user exists or not. So yeah, that could work, but at the same time we're talking to business, and because of reasons, business doesn't like it, so we need to accept this risk in the end. So all right. This is not bad. I mean, user enumeration is not a huge issue, so I think it's worth accepting. This isn't an ideal solution for me as a security guy, but I can live with this. So let's play another card, and it's session management Jack. And Jeff can resend an identical repeat interaction, for example, HTTP request, and it's accepted, not rejected. So let's focus on those HTTP requests. So we are talking about reply attacks, right? And I inform developers that when we are talking about HTTP, then as long as you're using HTTPS, reply attacks are not possible. But if we are using plain HTTP, then there is a possibility of reply attacks. And guess what? The green lines on the diagram are actually HTTPS, and the red ones are HTTP. So obviously, we already see that there are some places in our system that could be vulnerable to this. And well, the solution is simple. Let's just introduce HTTPS. But, and this is pretty important, what are the dotted lines on the diagram? These are so-called trust boundaries. So when you are inside trust boundary, you are trusting everything that's also within the same trust boundary, right? So for example, we have HTTP connection between our front-end microservices and our back-end microservice. Well, this isn't ideal, but since we are inside our trust boundary, we decide that we don't want to introduce extra overhead of TLS, and we decide to accept this risk in this case. On the other hand, there is a HTTP connection between admin and database. And that's actually not ideal because admin is connecting from outside the cloud, so probably from some place like on the internet. So in this case, the threat is much bigger, and probably we'll want to introduce HTTPS in this place. So let's say the development team commits to fix this in a week because it's pretty serious. At the same time, we have backend microservices talking via HTTP and crossing trust boundaries with database. So again, this is not ideal. These components are not within the same trust boundaries. But because it's in the cloud, then the agreement is that we will fix that, but not right now. We'll introduce the fix in like 2 months or so. So next one, cryptography 8. Un can access stored business data, for example, passwords, because it is not securely encrypted or securely hashed. And yeah, we read out loud this card, and developers are happy to inform me that they are using state-of-the-art SHA-3 function, which is obviously better than SHA-2. So yeah, I now need to explain to them that unfortunately, even though SHA-3 is like one version, has this version number bigger, this is not how you should store passwords. And I explained the concept of slow hashing, why this is important. I explained the concept of offline cracking. And we agree that this needs to be changed. We don't want to accept this risk. But the problem is, this is a lot of work. And we know because with that, we didn't use SHA-3, we used backrit, which is like a nice function, but we kind of felt that we want to bump up the hardness factor, and we wanted to migrate all the data into the like a new, like the same algorithm, but new hardness factor and so on. So we know this is a lot of work, and because of that, we can do this like overnight, and we need to be very careful because it's password. If we screw something up in the process, then we'll block everyone from accessing our web page, which is far worse than having those SHA-3 in the database. So we decide we'll fix this within a year during a slow process with multiple checks, iterations, and so on. And the last one, I actually love this card because it's almost always a sure thing to have some threats to be listed. So Xavier can circumvent the application's controls because code frameworks, libraries, and components contain malicious code or vulnerabilities. So yeah, if you ask your developers what version of Struts are you using, or of Spring, they usually don't really know. I mean, they might know the major version, but not the minor in most cases. So usually this is a problem. But what are the solutions? So they could, like, daily check for new versions of everything in their dependency tree, which is obviously kind of stupid because it's very, very tedious work. Or they could like add like some kind of automated tool to their pipeline which scans for vulnerable components. And there are such tools, and yeah, we are using some in Ocado because they're very interesting, but not yet in all projects. So the idea is that after threat modeling, there is a single task created that one of the developers will check like the most important components, but within a month or so, we want to introduce this automated tool as well. But again, this is the last card. I'm not going very much in depth. In most cases, there is more than one threat applicable to a card. So, for example, in this case, you could also talk about third-party JavaScript used in your web page, right? Because it's a malicious code in third-party component. And obviously the fix will be very much different because you'll probably want to use something like sub-resource integrity or perhaps content security policy. Both of these can help you with this. The point is, this is another threat, even though applicable to the same card, and you also need to take care of this. So the game goes on and on. And this is kind of how we do this. And what did we learn in the process of doing this? This is probably kind of interesting. So the first thing is that we really do like threat models. And I'm not gonna say they're perfect. And definitely the execution is not perfect. But it gives you a lot of benefits, and like the most obvious benefit is the reason why you are doing threat models. But we have found out that there are another like bonus wins made possible by threat models. So first of all, documentation and system diagram. If you have no documentation, is already a good start. And conversely, I would argue that every good documentation should have threat model included. I mean, we as the world are not ready for this to have this required yet, but I think that eventually that should be a case. And education. So you might be running some programs on how to train people so they know what the vulnerabilities look like, how to write secure code, and so on. But, you know, the training is like 1, 2, 3 days, then they forget everything, or not everything, but at least some parts. And this gives you an opportunity to kind of reiterate on some problems. So I regularly am forced to explain some vulnerabilities, some problems on those cards. And after this, obviously, after threat modeling, the side effect is that the dev teams is also a little bit smarter because they kind of learn a new vulnerability or a new kind of attack, things like this. And it really helps if you are using example from old threat models in your new threat models, because you can say that, yeah, you actually do want to fix that because like team A and B also had this problem and it was nasty. So you probably should fix that, or if this is a planned feature, you probably should not do this way, and so on and so on. It's much better to give examples from inside your company. If the guys know that their friends made this mistake, it's much easier for them to kind of accept that this is really a problem. And visibility. So I, as an AppSec, struggle all the time to get a visibility in a company. My role I wouldn't be possible if the people wouldn't knew that I exist. So I kind of need to go all the time and remind people that I exist. I am AppSec engineer here, and I'm here to help. If they don't know that I am there, they will not come to me with the problems they may have. So threat models are a nice this moment where you kind of present yourself, yeah. Also present yourself as a specialist. So during the process, they kind of see that I know what I'm doing, and possibly they will trust me a little bit more. But also because of the way how we do threat models, because of the approach which is not like you need to fix everything now, but because of like more realistic approach, they also are kind of inclined to share their dirty secrets, for example, and to work with me, not against me, right? And by the way, I said about sharing dirty secrets. The visibility works also in another direction. So if it wasn't for threat models, I wouldn't know about half the problems we had in company. Because, you know, there's this service, everyone except 2 guys forgot about it. It's been running forever. It's not listed anywhere. If it wasn't for threat model, and like the quick, oh, actually I remember that we have this service nobody really cares about anymore, but it's still running. Like these are how conversations sometimes look like. And because of that, I can do like, oh, wow. So that could be a problem. Can you tell me more? And gathering, like knowing all the assets in the company is obviously very important. It's not a way, threat modeling is not a way to gather all the assets, but it will help you to get some visibility over what you have in a company. Bug hunting, it's not a problem. Like the common misconception is that during threat model, you are kind of trying to identify vulnerabilities. You don't. You are looking for threats. But in the process, you might, I mean, regularly I get these red lights in my head turning on because, yeah, that doesn't really look great, what you are describing to me. And then after threat modeling, I'll ask for an access to the application. I'll do a little bit of ad hoc pen testing, I guess, or vulnerability hunting. And usually I'm able to find something interesting, which I can show to the team that, yeah, I was right. This isn't the best way to approach this. Again, not the point, but also happened more than once. And cornucopia and elevation of privilege give you also a little bit of agility, which is pretty important, which will be pretty important in a minute. So you have those cards, but we actually stopped playing cards. Like we are not playing like having a game. We are just using cards because they are very good. Like the threads described there are very interesting and are a great starting point. But at the same time, it turned out that like teaching people how this game works, what are the rules and so on was just wasting time. So the feedback I continuously got was that it's not worth the effort. And we are still using the cards, but not playing a game. Also because these are cards, then cards are very agile, right? There's a lot of cards in agile. And you can, for example, choose to play a card every week or every sprint or every stand-up maybe. And over time, you will play through the whole deck, right? So this is nice because that will be when you will finish threat model. Yeah, but as I said, no, everything is perfect. So there are 3 biggest problems I see with threat modeling in general, and especially, I mean, not especially, but in particular with cornucopia and elevation of privilege. So first of them is time. Threat modeling takes a lot of time. And actually, that's kind of the outcome of very cool thing. So every time I start threat modeling, there is a lot of discussions being started. So there's this card, and there is this threat described. So are we vulnerable? No, I don't think we are. But you forgot about this service. Yeah, but we have some mitigations in place. So maybe this one. And it goes on and on and on. And that's kind of the point. So you can't really like cut it because you would be missing all the important bits. But at the same time, playing even one card takes a significant amount of time. Yeah, I still think this time is valuable. So you kind of need to live with this. As I said, this agile approach could be something that will help. So we are never playing like all the cards on the one sitting, because it would take hours. And I'm talking like not 2 hours, but more like 20 hours, probably. And obviously you can't host sessions which are that long, because, and this is another problem, these sessions are pretty tiring. Like, you wouldn't believe that, I think, but trying to come up with new threads like constantly is tiring. Like, really, you are feeling tired, exhausted actually after an hour or two. So first of all, again, don't overdo this. We usually host sessions which are like maximum 2 hours long, and we are trying to cut them even shorter. We prefer to have more shorter questions than one long one. For example, to have one day dedicated to threat modeling. I'm not saying this wouldn't work at all, but yeah, it's probably better than to like kind of split this. Also, like, you know, if you are kind of a company that can get cookies into the room, or pizza, or host threat modeling in the evening, and even maybe some beer, then that also helps to kind of refresh the group. But don't overdo this. Actually, we overdid it a little bit, and like, not with the beer, fortunately, but the point is you need to be focused, and like, pizza can distract people a lot, for example. And this is stupid. This is really simple, but I had this problem so many times that I need to kind of shred this out. Make sure there is a fresh air in the room, because if there's not, then after 30 minutes, people will get sleepy. They won't be engaging in the conversation as much, and yeah, that's not great. And finally, as I started this presentation, I told you that the kind of a problem was that even for me, and I was supposed to be an like specialist, security specialist, even for me, getting all the information on how to do threat modeling, how this could work in a company, and so on, was pretty complicated. I'm not gonna lie. And if we are talking about developers who are not skilled security experts, then it's even worse for them. And I unfortunately don't consider those projects to be so simple that you can just tell your developers, well, do a threat modeling, use cornucopia, you'll be good. Unfortunately, that's not how it works. We are hosting a lot of demo sessions, and during these demo sessions, we are going through the whole process, but I am present in the group, and I'm helping them. I'm explaining how this works, and so on and so on. And we are doing a lot of those. Like, eventually, there needs to be some point where I'm almost non-existent. During those sessions, I only get results or something. But right now, we are not there yet. And yeah, as a summary, I guess, do I recommend doing threat modeling? Yes, definitely. I still think this is one of the most important things you can do to make sure your product is secure. It doesn't give you like immediate security, but it can help you to plan everything further on. And the processes we have are not perfect yet. Even cornucopia, even elevation of privilege aren't perfect. But it's still better to do something than do nothing, right? So don't try to be perfect, and just start doing threat models, and you will see if it works for you or not. And I guess that's it. I'm happy to answer simple questions. If there are hard ones, I lie that we don't have time for this, so don't worry. Yeah, but I think like the point of this talk was to kind of make you think about this, and I really don't expect that many questions, but maybe more conversations later on, and I'm very open to this. I don't really have time for conversations right now, so yeah, questions are welcome anyway.
I imagine before you started this, as you said, the team's agendas were already full. How did you persuade people to take part in these sessions?
I don't think there's a simple answer for that. I think it needs to be clear in an organization that you care about security. So there needs to be like something like, do you remember like Bill Gates' trustworthy computing memo that went around Microsoft? So that was a good example of management very much supporting the idea that we want to produce secure software. And I think that needs to be clear. And then I actually think that I was pretty helpful, like I was pretty effective with this because I had good relationship with my friends, my colleagues, and I didn't talk about this, but we strongly believe in security engineers being enablers, not blockers, in our company. So everyone knew that I'm not trying to kind of, this won't be like another time there is this security guy who is saying no, 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 but it will be a conversation, and we will we'll have outcomes that will be interesting for everyone. This is probably the second thing you can do to make sure that it works. And finally, I was from the beginning very open about the process, about the reasoning. So, like, the whole process starts with like simple 15-20 minutes presentation I'm giving to the team, explaining why we consider threat modeling to be very important, and describing how we will do this later on. And again, I don't think there's a simple answer to this question, but I think those three things are helping a lot.
Hello, just one question for curiosity. So applications and systems continuously evolve, right? So how do you iterate, on what cadence the threat modeling exercises on your applications and systems, when they change, like on a monthly, quarterly, annual basis?
Yeah, that's actually the bigger struggle we have. And to be honest, I don't really have answers yet. I mean, we do recognize this as being an issue. I don't think, I mean, threat modeling takes a lot of time, so you can't, especially if you are doing like continuous delivery or something like this, you can't really threat model each iteration, but you need to repeat the process every now and then. I don't think it needs to be repeated very often, but it needs to be repeated like every half a year or a year. And this is how we are trying to solve this, but well, till now, to be honest, it doesn't work that well. We are playing with the idea, which I kind of hinted during the presentation, to do this in a continuous way, meaning instead of doing threat modeling now and then next one in a year, let's like play one card every week or so. And you are doing this like constantly. There are like, I don't remember, it's like 6 times 13, I think, cards in current copia, so it will take probably a half or so to go through all of them, but then you start from the beginning. And we are constantly evaluating. This isn't perfect, I know, but again, this is a huge effort, and we can justify taking a week work, taking a whole week of work for a dev team every month or so. So yeah.
First of all, thank you for making it understandable also for people who don't belong to the security industry, like me, for example. I come from software testing, which means I'm concerned also about security, of course, but I'm not an expert. And I like the approach because as far as I understand, even though you can end up accepting a specific risk, you perform risk analysis and risk management before, in any case. And I like it because I've been noticing a worrying trend recently. Some project managers tend to not to do risk analysis at all, risk management. They just assume risk. I don't know if it's because they are not skilled at these things or just because they know it takes some effort, as you said. So my question is, have you been noticing this issue as well? And if so, how did you deal with it?
Well, to be honest, the risk analysis from the business point of view is a much wider topic than that just IT security. And I obviously focus only on IT security, and even not whole IT security, because I mostly take care of application security. So I haven't noticed this trend in our company, at least, but I'm not sure if I would, because I kind of see a small picture. I think threat models are great to deliver to your management later on, so they can use this in their risk analysis. But my point of focus is kind of now narrow, you know, it doesn't, so we are not considering things like, you know, like robberies or fires or floods or some things like this, which actually should be taken into account in a company, probably. I mean, like, at least a company, like Ocado. So, yeah.
Okay, thanks.
And by the way, I hope, I mean, I'm trying to fix this, but I tend to say developers, and this is actually pretty bad because I always mean development teams, which at least in Ocado consist of many people. So for example, we are engaging POs in threat models. We are definitely engaging, software engineering tests, and actually, we had even user experience guys joining us, and everyone who feels that his time won't be wasted during this is welcome to come. And I'm usually trying to make this as open as possible. This shouldn't be focused on developers only. So I probably said developers along my talk more than once, and what I meant was like development team, like actually just a team responsible for a product.
So one of the things that you mentioned was the threat modeling gives you visibility of the issues.
Yep.
Which kind of makes me think like you do on, for example, services that are already running in there. So I mean, my question would be, have you also done threat modeling on services that are just on inception, like on the mindset of someone before doing so? And have you seen kind of measurements instead of, if I've done threat modeling when I was designing my service, I also reduce potential risk instead of just, doing when something is already there and kind of having the visibility of the threats that are already there.
Yeah, that's a very good point. And actually, during my presentation to the teams, I'm explaining that threat modeling is actually even better if you are doing this from the beginning, because it's possible that you will avoid a lot of design flaws. Because, vulnerabilities, you fix them, you forget about them, that's cool. But design flaws, that's nasty. And the problem is that unfortunately in Ocado, most of the stuff we already have. There is not that much. I mean, there is a lot of new projects, but unfortunately, threat models we were running were mostly about projects which are already created. But if you have a chance to do a threat model before development starts, in the early design phase, that's even better, because you can, from the beginning, indeed, mitigate a lot of risks and just make sure this won't happen. So, yeah, I guess the simple answer is this is a great idea. We would like to have this way, but unfortunately, in real life, we didn't have a lot of chances to threat model new systems. Okay, thank you.